although not originally worked out with reference to the case of Dahomey. This abolitionist argument clearly worried the anti-abolitionist historians of Dahomey, Norris and Dalzell. Norris insisted that according to his reading of the records, Africa had always been like this. That the wars which have always existed in Africa have no connection with the slave trade, is evident from the universality of the practice of it between communities in a savage state. The oldest writers, as Leo, and others, have represented the Africans as living in a continual state of war and rapine, long before the commerce with Europeans was introduced among them. The damaging effects of the slave trade were seen in the paralysis of courtly politics. Until 1670, King of Ouaddaï opposed the unrestricted European trade in slaves. He had warned both the Dutch and the French that he wanted neither their ships nor their merchandise at his ports. At the same time, however, he faced opposition from sections of his court, and rebellion smoldered in his provinces. In the Senegal Valley, for example, the attempts by certain monarchs to enslave and sell their own subjects gave rise, at the end of the 17th century, to the Marabout War and the Tubanan movement, from the word tub, meaning to convert to Islam. Its founder, Nasir al-Din, proclaimed that God does not permit kings to pillage, kill or enslave their peoples. He appointed them, on the contrary, to preserve their subjects and protect them from their enemies. Peoples were not made for kings, but kings for people. Through contact with the Islamic world to the north and east, Kano and the rest of Hausaland already were influenced indirectly by the wider world, including the Western world. Kano had served as a center of the slave trade from long before this time, but served mostly North Africa. The demand for slaves to fill the needs of European colonies in the New World led Kano more deeply into the slave trade early in the 17th century. The Hausa themselves never dealt directly with European slavers. Rather, they would go on raiding expeditions to the south, then trade their captives to other peoples south and west of them, who would trade with Europeans on the coast. At 8:30 we entered the straggling beautiful city of Kandahar by passing a pretty brook, situated in a picturesque bosque. Kandahar covers about 6 square miles of ground. In it are 4 palaces of large extent, and each house has its piece of ground under cultivation dividing it from its neighbors. Here commences a broad clean road, as wide as any high road in England, leading to Aboni, with branch roads, equally good, approaching the palaces. The market is very extensive, occurring, as usual with all large markets in Dahomey, once in 4 days. There is a sereneness about this spot that leads the ideas far from Africa. The views are beautiful, the dwellings clean, neat, and quiet. Numbers of aged of both sexes speak of peace, for, while the hordes of the monarch and his nobles carry war and devastation into all the neighboring countries, Kandahar, formerly the capital of Fay, then called Dahi, conquering Aboni, has retained a peace of upwards of 200 years. The cultivation in the neighborhood rivals that of the Chinese,